Hello everyone, back again to Translation 1, Summer 2020. This is class number 8. We're going to do the translation of modals. Modals are very important in translation from English into Arabic simply because there is this discrepancy between how English introduces and deals with modals and how Arabic deals with them. We have 10 modals in English. They can be also called auxiliary verbs, okay? These are can, could, may, might, will, would, shall, should, must, ought to. They create several problems when it comes to translation from English and Arabic. can be translated into يستطيع or يمكنه or يمكنها. He can go home now. يمكنه أن يذهب إلى البيت الآن. Look at how one word in English can is translated into two words in Arabic. أن يذهب. يمكنه أن يذهب. Or add the pronoun الهو in يمكنه, you have three segments, you have three elements. Okay? يمكنه أن يذهب, أن يفعل, أن يدرس. Could, you've learned in schools that could is the past of can. We will discuss this, okay? May and might, you have studied that may indicates possibility, might indicate less possibility. Will, سوف, okay? Imagine this is a verb in English, will, but in Arabic it is not a verb. سوف, س. And we have two alternatives. When are we going to use س يكتب الدرس and سوف يكتب الدرس? Which one is more appropriate in which contexts, okay? Would is dealt with in English as the past of will, but does it all the time function as the past of will? Will in sentences, for example, when I was a child, I would go to the lake with my grandpa every day, okay? How are you going to translate this? I would go to the lake with my grandpa when I was a child. These all have their own functions that we are going to discuss referring to Michael Swan's practical English usage. You need to look at a reference of English grammar in order to be able to handle these words. Shall, سوف. What is the difference between will and shall? Okay? Should, must, ought to. All these are auxiliary verbs that pose problems when it comes to translation from English into Arabic. My first piece of advice is that we are going to talk about general rules offered by Professor Hassan Ghazala in his book Translation Problems and Solutions. My piece of advice is not to rely totally on these rules. These rules are general rules. You abide by them, you do a fairly good job. But again, because as we've mentioned before, English may have one rule and have 1,000 exceptions or other details, elaborations, okay? You have to be careful because shall can mean something totally different from what you are going to learn in the book here today. So it is very important to go and look for these words in detailed references such as practical English usage or any difference, any other reference. Okay? Problem 1. Will, shall are not verbs in Arabic. These two modals are not verbs in Arabic when they are used to refer to future. They mean the future particle سوف and س. سوف is usually used for future. س in the book, Dr. Ghazala says سوف is for far future. You cannot say this. You can only it's a future. The difference between سوف and س is the س is for immediate future. Okay? This is the nuance between these two particles, these two elements. Okay? So, will and shall are translated into سوف or seen regardless of the possibility of the reference for the latter to the near future and the former to the far future. For this is by no means the frequent case in actual use of Arabic. Okay? They will forgive us. سوف يغفرون لنا. يسامحون. Okay? Can you say سيغفرون لنا? Yes. Again, all these alternatives depend on the context. The richness of Arabic in this regard is an asset, not a burden. It gives you an alternative in order to use, which you are going to use, in time to produce a coherent, smooth, intelligible text in the target language that is Arabic. We shall delay the meeting. سوف نؤجل الاجتماع. سنؤجل الاجتماع. Problem 2. The literal translation of modals into one word, can, may, and must, are usually understood by the students to mean one word each. يجب, يمكن, يستطيع. But the case is not so. Okay? It's not so. They imply two words. The problem becomes clearer when the students translate them from Arabic into English. They are translated into the following: يجب أن, يمكن أن, يستطيع أن, or in the feminine case تستطيع أن, يجب عليها أن, يجب أن تفعل, تستطيع أن. Okay? At the same time, grammatically, it is obligatory in Arabic. You cannot say يستطيع يذهب, although in certain grammar schools you can say يستطيع يذهب, يستطيع يفعل. Okay? But this needs more verification. We can walk, نستطيع أن نمشي. We cannot say نستطيع نمشي. Okay? Unless in certain varieties of Arabic. Okay? We may walk, يمكننا أن نمشي. Can you say يمكننا نمشي? Well, you discuss this, you explore this option, whether you can say نستطيع, يمكننا أن نمشي, and let us discuss this when we meet on Zoom. We must walk, يجب علينا أن نمشي, يلزمنا أن نمشي. The second version, يلزمنا, expresses necessity, which is one of the meanings of must. The same applies to the past tenses of these verbs. Could, might, and must. They are translated into two words each. يجب أن, يمكنه أن, يستطيع أن. Okay? Problem number 3, the special use of shall. Shall has a special use in the language of law. Here it is called empty shall. Okay? And it means necessity or obligation. When the judge, for example, issues a verdict, okay, the defendant shall appear before court now. يجب على المدعي أن يمثل أمام المحكمة الآن. Look at how appear became يمثل instead of يحضر. This is the importance of synonymy. Okay? The defendant المدعى عليه. Okay? Look again at synonymy with defendant. Defend يدافع. Okay? Defend يدافع. But here in legal discourse it is المدعى عليه. المدعي is plaintiff. Okay? أن يمثل أمام المحكمة الآن. And see how before is أمام, not وراء. This is a very good example of how synonymy works. Okay? أمام المحكمة الآن. And see how shall becomes يجب. You can say also على المدعى عليه المثول أمام المحكمة الآن. على المدعى عليه. It can signify obligation as well. Obligation الوجوب. Okay. Problem 4. Should is for obligation only. Usually should is understood by many students as the past tense of shall and used in English to refer to the future in the past. In fact, should is not used in this sense but in the sense of must only. And here in this book by Michael Swan, you can look at how should and ought are very similar. Should and ought. So you can say should can be rendered into Arabic as ينبغي. Okay? Must and should and ought also are similar. Okay? According to the book. Should equals must. Should is always translated into يجب أن. But again, when it is compared with ought, you can say ينبغي. Okay, you should say everything. يجب عليك أن تقول كل شيء. We should face him. يجب علينا أن نواجهه. يجب علينا مواجهته. Changing the verb face into noun. Remember the class word shift. Problem 5. The confusion of must have and should have. Many students understand these two constructions as having the same meaning in the past, but they are not so. On the contrary, they are opposite. Must have and should have. Must have equals action which took place. Should have action which did not take place. Hani had left the university 2 hours ago, and you expect he is home now. He must have arrived. Must have arrived here does not translate into يجب. Here it is لا بد أنه وصل. You see, لا بد أنه وصل. It is totally different from obligation. Okay? At translating these two examples, we must distinguish between the first, which implies action, and the second, which implies no action. They must have finished work. لابد أنهم أنهوا العمل. Okay? They should have finished work. كان عليهم أن ينهوا العمل. So لابد is used to express the doing or the expectation and necessity of doing something in the past. Whereas كان عليهم expresses the wish to have something done, but for some reason it didn't happen. Okay? Problem number 6, the unclear meaning of could, would, and might. Understood as the past tenses of can, will, and may, these models remain unclear when used in the present simple. So, could, would, and might can be used in the present simple. Again, you have to refer each time you come across these modal verbs, you are advised to refer to a specialized book in grammar, because if you open any grammar book, you will find a lot of entries and meanings and usages of each one of them depending on the context. Okay? And this is and here the difference between American English and British English. In America, hardly do you hear people saying can. Could is the normal verb. Okay? Solution could, would, might, possibility. The common use of these verbs is in the senses of possibility, permission, and expression of politeness, request. Therefore, they have the meanings of may. She could blame herself. يمكن أن تلوم نفسها. لعلها تريد أن تلوم نفسها. She would blame herself. She might blame herself. يمكنها أن تلوم نفسها. It is not possible to understand these three modals as verbs in the past. They reflect the grammatical functions of expressing possibility, permission, and or polite request. Okay? Problem 7. Can and will. Can usually expresses ability and means يستطيع أن in Arabic, whereas will is used for the future tense to mean sa and سوف in Arabic. However, both are used here in the same meaning of may to express possibility and or permission. Look, will can mean permission, can give permission. You can open the window. You may open the window. يمكنك أن تفتح النافذة. Sorry, there is a mistake here. You can talk about will as another thing. When you say, when a mom says to her daughter, you will not join us to the party, this is an order, okay? This is like a prohibition, something forbidden. Modal verbs are then problematic. Their main problem may lie in the lack of one single unchanged meaning for each of them. The following notes may help the students of translation to distinguish the different meanings and functions of modals. 1. It should be borne in mind that none of them has one fixed meaning only. This makes us more careful at translating them into Arabic. So each time you come across one of these auxiliary verbs, you are advised to refer to a specialized dictionary. Okay? Number 2, understanding their grammatical functions of possibility, permission, politeness, expectancy, ability, etc. All these enable you to distinguish their different meanings in Arabic. The consideration of the difference in Arabic between the common meaning and the unusual meaning of the modal, okay, like will, for instance, has a common meaning of referring to the future as sa in Arabic, but it has an unusual meaning of bil imkan, to make a polite request. Just for the sake of illustration and comparison, we may translate will in the following example into its common and then unusual meaning respectively. Respectively means على التوالي in Arabic. Okay? Will you open the window please? It is too warm. هل بإمكانك أن تفتح النافذة من فضلك؟ Will you open the window? هل سوف تفتح النافذة من فضلك؟ هل يمكن أن تفتح النافذة من فضلك؟ فالجو حار. Okay? Look at how the semicolon is translated into the fa in Arabic. We'll come to this in translation 2 as well, where a punctuation is translated into a letter or a preposition in Arabic, okay, like words. The comparison of the two versions shows that the second is more conceivable, as the future is irrelevant here. The same comparison can be helpful with could, would, must, and should in particular, okay? When will, would, and shall are used to refer to the future, they are not translated into verbs in Arabic, but into the future particles sa, starting with sa and sawfa. However, care should be taken that they have other meanings, such as implying a polite request. Will you open the window, please? Okay? A possibility, permission, and or politeness, i.e. would or shall, should. These meanings have their equivalents in Arabic, as the previous discussion confirms. Before I leave, I would love to read certain rules, for example, with these, okay? With may is like shall, used in legal discourse that indicates permission or permissibility. the defendant may use testimonies. يجوز للمدعى عليه الإفادة من الشهادات or digital resources الموارد الإلكترونية أو الرقمية. So you may I enter, you may not enter. لا يجوز لك الدخول. It has nothing to do with يمكنك or لا يمكنك or ربما أو الاحتمال. Okay? Now, if you look at the degree of certainty, for example, okay, modal verbs can express various degrees of certainty about a fact or an event, okay? Complete certainty, positive or negative. I shall be away tomorrow. I shall be away tomorrow. How do you translate shall be away tomorrow? سأكون بعيدا غدا or سأكون في عطلة غدا. Okay? I shan't be late on Tuesday. Shan't be late on Tuesday is extremely totally different in Arabic. You cannot say سوف لن أتأخر. Okay? سوف لن أتأخر in Arabic. You immediately go for لن because لن is indicative of the negative in the future. Okay, immediately. Futureness is implied in لن. And this is a common mistake committed by novice translators who are not aware of the difference between how English works and how Arabic works. In order to be a good translator, it is not sufficient for you to only know the rules in English. You have to know the rules of the language to which you are rendering the segment. I shan't, I shall not be late on Tuesday. لن أتأخر يوم الخميس. Okay? There is the phone that will be Tony. There is the phone. How do you translate there is the phone that will be Tony? Things will be all right. It won't rain this evening. It won't rain. You cannot say it won't rain. سوف لن تمطر في هذا المساء. لن تمطر هذا المساء. Okay? You must be tired. You cannot say you must be tired as يجب أن تكون متعبا. You must be tired. لا بد أنك متعبا. That cannot be John. He is in Dublin. Okay? That cannot be John. He is in Dublin. Look, there is the phone that will be Tony. There is a phone. التليفون. هل تستطيع أن تقول there is the phone? There is the phone. هناك التليفون أم رن التليفون؟ رن التليفون. That will be Tony. لا ممكن you can say هذا لابد أنه توني. Okay, the best translation of that will be Tony. لابد أنه توني. Here is the rule is totally different, and the context governs your decision in Arabic. Okay. Somebody else says that cannot be John. He is in Dublin. لا يمكن أن يكون جون. مستبعد أن يكون جون. Okay? They knelt in front of the child who would one day rule all England. How would you translate would? Okay? They knelt in front of the child who would one day rule all England. Would here is not rendered by any rules that you have learned so far in the class. Okay? جثوا على ركبهم knelt or ركعوا in front of the child أمام الطفل الذي سيكتب له حكم حكم كل إنجلترا. أوكي، يوما ما، أو الذي سيحكم إنجلترا يوما ما. Now, she ought to be here soon. Should, in the class we talked about should as يجب, but here ينبغي أو يجب. Okay, she ought to be here soon. Probability, possibility are manifested in we may be buying a new house. We may be buying a new house is better translated into Arabic ربما, but much better is to say لعلنا نشتري بيتا جديدا أو ربما نشتري بيتا جديدا. The water may not be warm enough to swim. من المحتمل ألا يكون الماء دافئا بما يكفي للسباحة. We have weak probability also. I might see you again. Who knows? لعلني أراك مجددا. من يدري? Things might not be as bad as they seem. لعل الأمور, things, you cannot say الأشياء. Okay? Things might not be as bad as they seem. لعل الأمور لا تبدو سيئة بقدر ما تبدو. We could all be millionaires one day. Okay? يمكن أن يحتمل أن لعلنا أن نكون مليارديريين أو مليارديريين. How do you pluralize ملياردير? Okay? لعلنا نكون من أصحاب الملايين يوما ما. Okay? Now, with can, it is used to seek permission. Can I borrow your keys? Okay? Do you think I might take a break now? May we use the phone? Permission? May we use the phone? هل يمكننا? Here is nothing to do. May is nothing to do with احتمال. Here, asking for permission. Okay? Can I borrow your keys? You can talk about can, may, and might. Okay? Are all used to indicate seeking permission. Do you think I might take a break now? This is a very polite way of asking for a break. Do you think I might take a break now? هل تعتقد أن بإمكاني الحصول على استراحة الآن؟ Can I borrow your keys? هل يمكنني أن أستعير مفاتيحك؟ Okay. May we use the phone? هل يمكن أن أستخدم التليفون؟ Okay. With ability, she can speak 6 languages. يمكنها, تستطيع أن تتكلم لغات 6. Okay. Note that obligation, permission, etc. are usually seen from the speaker's point of view in statements and the hearers in questions. Compare. You must go and see Anne. I think it is necessary. You must go. يجب عليك أن تذهب وترى Anne. I think it is necessary. Must you go and see Anne? Do you think it is necessary? Must you go? Must you go and see Anne? You must go and see Anne. عليك أن تذهب وترى Anne. Must you go and see Anne? هل تعتقد أن عليك أن تذهب وترى Anne? Okay. You can borrow my car. I gave permission. Okay. You can borrow my car. يمكنك أن تستعير سيارتي. Can I borrow your car? Will you give me permission? Will you give me permission? So can is the same as will you. Okay? Can I borrow your car? هل يمكن أن أستعير سيارتك. Okay. For now, I think this suffices. See you next time and thank you.